Does anyone else out there remember a time when the most popular electric vehicle on the market was a golf cart? Once Tesla came around, Club Car really didn't have the same attraction that it once had, and now there's many other players out in the field. Today, we are going to be taking a look at one electric vehicle company that has been in the news a lot recently. And no, it's not Nikola, it's Workhorse. So thank you for the suggestion, Billy, but let's go ahead and take a quick look at Workhorse's stock. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. My name is Matt, and as I mentioned in the intro, today we're going to be taking a look at Workhorse. Now, before we start into that, I just have to say that this isn't financial advice. Please don't take it as financial advice. This is just for your entertainment purposes only, so please do not make any investment decisions based solely on what you hear. Now, if you're not familiar with Workhorse already, they are a relatively new electric vehicle company, but they focus on last mile delivery trucks. They don't necessarily have the easiest history to follow along with. They originally started in 1998 by a group of investors who essentially just took over the production for one of GM's vans. Later, the company was acquired by Navistar in 2005, I believe it was, but in 2012, Navistar had to shut down their operations due to severe financial loss. In 2015, it was later acquired by Amp Electric Vehicles, who ultimately changed the name to become Workhorse, the company that we know today. Now, I do have just one more disclosure to say about this, and this is more my personal thing, but I do just have to say, this has been a slightly frustrating company to try to learn more about. Is it a quality product? Is there any issues that could come up down the road or any kind of political factors that might influence the performance of this company? And a lot of that is really hard to find because it's just such a cluttered space full of news and perspectives, and it just doesn't make it as easy to really learn about these companies when there's so much other clutter taking up the news headlines. Now, with that said, obviously I was able to find that they have their production facilities. They did actually make a car. Thanks, Nikola, for making me actually have to question that. And so, overall, I have to say that I have a pretty optimistic view for Workhorse. That said, though, I just have to address my concerns first, but then we'll talk about the things that I like about this company. So I actually have to say I don't have too many concerns about Workhorse specifically. Some of the concerns I have, yes, pertain to Workhorse. Other concerns I have really are more about the electric vehicle space itself, not specifically for Workhorse. But let's just run through these real quickly. And the first one is obviously being the electric vehicle space is very new. And there's a lot of risks that are associated with being involved in a brand new industry. That being said, it's not every day you have the ability to invest in a brand new industry. So there's a lot of risks that every investor is just going to have to assume with getting into this space. Just like for sake of example here, one thing could be we don't know necessarily what will happen with these batteries over 20 years. Or at least there's nothing I was able to find. I don't know if they were able to simulate 20 years worth of driving and testing on it. But, what if it becomes like your phone after a while, where they just don't hold a charge? If that's a possibility, and if so, how long does it take for us to get to that point? Do these vehicles, we all know they can withstand the wear and tear a little bit better than a combustion vehicle can. So overall, just again, with this new space, you should just be aware of the risks associated with investing in new industries. That said, new industries bring a lot of opportunities, so just take that concern, I guess you could say, with a grain of salt, and it's just something you should at least be aware of, as I'm sure all of you already are. Now, really the one big concern that I have with Workhorse, and this one I'm sure will work out, and I'm sure it's nothing I should be concerned about, but it has to do with the fleet size. So we all know about the USPS order, and of course I'm going to address that in a little bit, but that was a large order of vehicles. I want to say it was around 200,000, I could be wrong, but that is a lot of vehicles. And just to give some background, when Tesla started the production of their very first car, Elon Musk came at it with the approach of they're going to start with an expensive car that not many people can afford, so it's going to be a small sample size. That allows them to really focus on the quality of the product that they're putting out and allows them to kind of learn the little kinks on just a small sample. Then they're going to expand more into that still expensive, but more people can afford it with a little bit larger of a production. So that way they can see if their way of building these cars can scale well if it comes into producing more and more cars. Once they were able to do that, then they came out with a Model 3, and obviously they had a big production, low cost, more inventory, approach to it. And I like that because I think it really allows for you to monitor the quality control as you're still developing this brand new product into the market. So with Workhorse coming out right into like a 200,000 vehicle offer with USPS, can be a little concerning because that is a large number of vehicles that they really haven't been able to quality control quite yet. Yes, they have a few out there right now, but we don't know when you're producing, it's a lot different when you produce 3 trucks for your local town, in Ohio to try out the vehicles, than to have a government agency purchase a large fleet from you. There could be some issues that come up when it comes from scaling that production so quickly. And that would just be my little hesitation. Like I said, though, that's more or less just a concern because that's how I view it. But maybe they do have the technology already ready to go, and really scaling from just a few handfuls of vehicles to hundreds of thousands of vehicles won't be as big of an issue for them. And really the last con I have for them is they're in the spotlight. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I typically like to invest in companies that more or less fly underneath everybody else's radar. Now, it's not saying every company I invest in does fly under the radar. Look at Peloton and Shopify. But those are also companies that aren't constantly in the spotlight with their news headlines. And a lot of these electric vehicles, that's why I don't talk about them too much because, like I said earlier, there's just a lot of clutter involved in this space right now. And it's really hard to gather information. I think down the road, this will kind of start to phase out a little bit with how much news is being reported about these companies. But for the time being, while there's just so much news about these companies, you're going to experience some volatility because there's going to be a lot of people either getting in or out of the market depending on what headline they read. And sometimes, when you see something like an analyst price estimate or an analyst rating, to me, analyst ratings are the headlines of the finance industry, and they're essentially meaningless. Because just because somebody's saying to hold doesn't mean that you shouldn't be buying or selling, because your investment plan should be different than what that specific analyst's investment plan is. And I think that sometimes we tend to put a little bit too much emphasis or allow for these analyst ratings to carry too much weight. And so, again, for the time being, I like to stay away from companies that are just constantly all over the news and with very frequent changes in their analyst rating. But now I do want to talk about the pros. And this is actually going to be a little bit longer of a section because, like I said, I do have more good than bad things to say about Workhorse. And the first pro that I have for Workhorse is that they are very much a niche focused business. And like I said earlier, they are the last mile delivery service. And I love that aspect of them because that means that they're focused on a small area of transportation, but one that clearly has high demand. I mean, we see delivery vehicles everywhere, but it's not as high demand of an area as, personal vehicles. So I really like that they're focused on this one sector as opposed to saying, we're going to come out, we're going to do semi-trucks, we're going to do last mile delivery vehicles, we're going to do cars, we're going to do motorcycles. No, they're focused on the truck itself and the delivery truck. I know they originally had some discussions about there being a pickup truck, but from what I was able to tell, that is no longer a project that they're working on. And I'm a fan of that because, again, you look at a company like Peterbilt, the semi-truck maker. They don't make a pickup truck. They only make semi-trucks. Now, they're a holding company. I'm sure there's a branch that makes the pickup trucks and all that good stuff. But you don't see a Peterbilt pickup truck because that's not what their focus is. They're focused on the big trucks. And so I think that if Workhorse were to have this delivery van and a pickup truck, they'd start to stray away too far away from that niche of last mile delivery. So personally, I really like the fact that they're focused, and I was glad to hear that they are not going to do an electric vehicle. That they're not going to do an electric pickup truck. Because again, too, that would just be a distraction because they'd have to find people to sell those, and then they'd have to enter in a different kind of market than what they're after. So big fan of the fact that they're just sticking with this delivery service. New York also announced that they'll be having a voucher program for people that are able to either sell or get rid of their diesel trucks and replace it with one of Workhorse's delivery trucks, the electric trucks. And again, just something I really like because this is an incentive for people to move away from vehicles that they previously had and get into Workhorse, which is going to help them drive sales. And I'm sure that if it's a little bit smaller, it'll probably be a much easier thing for Workhorse to produce is just having like a very standard electric truck that somebody can then buy and then hire like a printing company to put their wrapper logo on it. So I think that's exciting, and I'm sure California is going to follow behind. I'm sure a few other states are going to follow behind with this voucher program, and that should ultimately help Workhorse with sales in the long run. Not as big as a huge order from USPS, but it's kind of those small victories that really help win the war. We also saw in recent news that they took on about $200 million in debt. Most people might think this is a bad thing. I actually think this is a good thing for a few reasons. The first one is the debt that they received is coming at a lower interest rate than what they previously had, and part of this money is going towards paying off previous debts. So that obviously is good because they won't be paying as much in interest should they get to that point. And also just seeing that debt is being loaned to them for a lower cost, meaning a lower interest rate, is a good sign that the people loaning them this money have faith in Workhorse's ability to pay this debt back. And I think they really have the ability to scale into more smaller areas as well. And really two things comes to mind when I think about that: beer and pizza. So in Charlotte, breweries are opening up left and right everywhere. And it seems like every time I go to the local Harris Teeter, there is always some brewery's truck out there dropping off some of the beer that they just made. And all of those drive like the Ford Transit or some kind of smaller truck. So I think that if Workhorse had the ability to target even smaller, local companies like breweries to help them with these deliveries, that is an area of opportunity for them as well, because again, something we'll talk about here in a second, but the cost savings aspect for small businesses carries so much weight on that business's performance. And I think, again, it just could be an area that maybe more small businesses like breweries will focus on. And with pizza, yeah, I'm talking about the drone delivery system for pizzas, because there's a Domino's pizza that's like less than 2 miles from where I live right now. And instead of sending out a delivery driver, if I could just say, hey, Domino's, drop this off on my front porch, and they're able to fly a drone over into, my neighborhood, drop it off and fly back, that's something that I think would be really exciting, because it could just get the pizza there sooner, it can be more cost effective, and it would be kind of a cool thing to see if just a drone delivering pizzas. Now, yes, those drones are super loud. They're going to have a lot of issues with those drones at first, but something I could see in the future is, you order that food from Grubhub or Uber Eats or something, and I could see there being a time where it gets delivered by a drone. So while I think that the drone does start to stray away a little bit from that focus, it still is focused on that last mile delivery. So it's something that I think will be just an added perk to the business itself, but not one of the biggest ideas that gets me most excited about Workhorse. Other thing I really like about this, and what could really be a driver of sales for them, is this is going to be very cost effective for businesses to incorporate. I think I saw something, and I don't remember the exact number, so let's just say, for example, right now, let's say it currently costs $1 a delivery for UPS to drop off packages. With an electric vehicle, that can go down to 36 cents a package for deliveries. And with the drone, it can go down to 3 cents a delivery for these packages. So cost savings in an area, especially for somebody like the USPS, it's not really new news that USPS is struggling. So I'm sure that they're going to be looking for cost savings any way that they can, and seeing something literally cut your cost by more than half is going to be such a good incentive to have these companies, follow through with these contracts, which I think really brings us to that next point is USPS. So a lot of people, when USPS decided to kind of push back this decision for the contract, I think a lot of people interpreted that as they're not following through with it, but that's not the case. They just had to postpone their decision, and I think that makes sense. First off, if you ever worked with the government, you know that nothing happens on time, and it always happens slowly, and there's always delays. So not a huge surprise to see that once again the government had to postpone making a huge decision. So that part lines up. Also, again, this is an election year. Now, I don't know if this will really, whoever wins the election will have any impact on USPS and buying these trucks, but that could be something they're taking into consideration, because if they feel that maybe they're going to have to pay more in one area, or maybe they'll receive more funding from another area, can really determine how many of these trucks they'll be able to afford and purchase. So I don't necessarily see USPS pushing off the decision on this as a bad thing, because again, they haven't said no yet. They just haven't said yes either. But I think with USPS not having the best background recently, and obviously struggling as a business itself, then this could be a really big opportunity for them to just help start keeping a little bit more money and hopefully improving their business that they operate. So with this being a company that has a lot of debt right now in a new industry with a lot of risks associated and not very promising sales, I really think that this company has a lot of potential to be a huge factor in the future. So if you're wondering my opinion, I'm not really in the market to buy this kind of stock right now in my portfolio, my personal portfolio, because mine's a little bit more risky. But if you are in the market, I think that this is a great company to buy. Sure, the stock might continue to go down. It can also continue to go up. The thing that you'll have to keep into consideration is if USPS says yes to this deal, the stock here is going to skyrocket, and it's going to happen very quickly. So how optimistic are you going to be with USPS saying, yeah, send us the trucks, we'll buy them from you? Also, if you're not sure which direction this will go in, as I always say, there's nothing wrong with either continuing to do your research, add it to a watch list, and just monitor the performance of this, or break down your purchase. So if you said, I'm going to put $10,000 into this company, you don't have to put $10,000 in today. You can put $2,000 in today, maybe $2,000 in next month, or $2,000 in the week after that, and just kind of monitor the performance so you're getting in at different costs or different price levels. And then that way, you're not jumping in all at one price and then tomorrow, it's selling $5 less a share than it was today. And it just helps you get a better opportunity if you don't go 100%, because nobody said you have to. You can go 20% at a time if that makes you sleep better at night. So I'm very excited for the electric vehicle market. There's a few other opportunities though I do like better than Workhorse, and that'll probably be in a very soon video. But thank you again, Billy, for the suggestion, and I hope that you learned something from this video. I know it's not my most financially savvy video that I've made before, but there's just not much real information out there other than just headlines. And so it makes it really hard for me to dive deep into these companies and fully understand them when all I'm seeing is just back and forth headlines between if they're going to get accepted from USPS or not. So with that said, I'm going to wrap up here. Hope you enjoyed this video today. And I hope that you learned something from it. If you have any questions, inputs, or anything that you'd like to talk about, please leave that in the comments down below, and I'll happily read your comments. I love talking with all of you and engaging with all of the comments that you leave behind, so definitely keep them coming. And if you enjoyed it, hope that you consider hitting that like button, and once again, the subscribe button. It's still free to click, at least when I checked this morning. It's still free, so maybe check that one out as well. With all that said though, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're right here with me, and I really appreciate that. I'll let you go ahead, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next time.